Howdy folks, welcome back to Doing Brew. On today's episode, we're going to focus on installing a 1/2-inch Durock on a bathroom wall, specifically the shower surround walls. But before we get to the video, a real quick program note. Thank you so much to all my loyal subscribers that have been with me since the beginning of Doing Brew about 2 years ago, and also a huge influx of new subscribers over the last week, the last month. I sure do appreciate it, folks. It shows me that you like the content that I'm putting up. And let me tell you, doing the home improvement work is only half of the work. It takes a lot of time to put together these videos. I'm happy to do it, and I really appreciate your support as my subscriber. One more note. I've been catching a lot of grief from you guys that I haven't been doing any beer reviews lately. And goodness knows, I need to drink more beer. So, to answer your requests, in my next episode, which is waterproofing, which is a really important topic, but it doesn't take a long time to get that across, I'm going to do a beer review of one of my favorite microbrews, Dogfish Head. So make sure you tune in for that episode, and let's get right down to installation of Durock. So the first thing to note with Durock wall insulation, or really drywall insulation, you have to make sure you have a sufficient number of studs or nailers to attach the material to that you're hanging on the wall. In our case, we didn't have a nailer in the corner of this tub surround. So we just grabbed some scrap wood that was laying around the shop and put it up in this corner. Yeah, it's a little bit of overkill, but I'm sure it's going to provide a very sturdy nailer for our Durock. With our nailer installed complete, it's time to measure the width for our first sheet of Durock, as well as the dimensions for the niche. First thing I'm going to do is mark out my lines and cut for width. And you'll see here in a moment, I like to do that with a jigsaw with a masonry blade. You can score and crack this, but this is 1/2-inch Durock, and I honestly find that a little bit difficult, and I like to have a nice crisp line, and that's just me, and I can get a really nice cut without a whole lot of effort with the jigsaw. So I make most of my cuts with the jigsaw with the 1/2-inch Durock. Now we'll mark out for our niche, and again using the jigsaw we'll cut that out, and of course there in the corners you can see where I drilled my starter hole to get my jigsaw started. Now we're going to save that piece. That's not scrap. That'll be the back of our niche. I like to have a little bit of a space between the bottom of the Durock and the top of the tub. So what I am using here is 2 pieces of cardboard taped together. When we place the Durock on top, that's going to compress that cardboard down to about 3/16 of an inch, maybe a quarter. And that's going to give me a nice gap where I can put a heavy bead of caulk in between the bottom of the Durock and the top of the tub. Just another layer of water protection. Now Aiden is going ahead and installing those rock-on screws at about 8 inches on center all the way around. And that piece of Durock, our first piece, is secured. Now the next piece we're putting in along the side of the tub, very simple cut to length, and we're going to put a whole piece in there. We'll go ahead again and put our spacer in, as well as screwing it in 8 inches on center. Our next piece is a relatively simple piece to cut as well. Cut to length and then cut to width to be even with the bottom of the window jamb. We'll go ahead and install that with our rock-on screws and get ready for the next cuts. Okay, the next 4 pieces that we'll install are relatively simple as well. All easy square cuts. 2 on each side of the window, 1 across the top, and 1 large square piece there on top of the back wall. Now Aiden is going to go ahead and install the quote-unquote scrap piece to the back of the niche. He's going to set that in place, liquid nails behind, and then I'm going to go ahead and put a real heavy bead of 100% silicone caulk all the way around the niche. This is part of the layering of waterproofing that I like to do. Multiple layers of caulk, the waterproofing, which we'll get to in the next video, And all these layers is kind of like going outside in the wintertime. You don't want to put one heavy coat on. Multiple layers of clothes keep you warm. Multiple layers of waterproofing ensure good results. Now we're going to go ahead and dress out the walls of our niche with the Durock, and of course secured with the rock-on screws. And then once complete, another layer of silicone caulk all the way around on all the seams. Okay, next up is the installation of Durock on the windowsill. Now as you can see, I put a pretty heavy slope on that. This is not ever intended to be a place to store anything, and I certainly don't want any water ever setting on the windowsill, or worse yet, working its way back towards the window and rotting out that window jamb. So I put a pretty heavy slope on there to ensure the water runs off as quickly as possible. Okay, next up is the installation of our two final pieces of Durock on the plumbing wall. So I'm going to go ahead and measure for width, and then measure out for my lower utilities, the mixer valve up on top, and the faucet below. Now here, this is just a little tip. I write all of my dimensions on the wall, and then take a picture of it and take it down to where I'm going to make my final cuts. Back in the old days, used to have to do that with pen and paper. Now, a little bit easier to do, writing right there on the wall and then bringing your phone downstairs. So I'll go ahead and mark for width, and it's a simple cut with the jigsaw. And next up, we'll mark the positions for our cuts for our faucet and diverter valve. Now, that's our center line, so to speak. It's a little off center. And those are the center points for my cuts. And right there I have the radius marked out at the kind of the 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock positions, top, bottom, left, and right. And that lets me just kind of freehand a circle. Those are actually kind of egg-shaped, quite honestly. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Go ahead and drill your hole. You see I elongate that hole just a little bit to ensure my jigsaw blade gets in there. And those egg-shaped holes will be just enough to get us in the ballpark to ensure a nice fit. Now, there's really nothing terribly difficult with doing this. I know a lot of people are intimidated when it comes to cutting the holes and getting the measurements right. It's really just a function of measuring as carefully as you can and transferring those measurements onto your piece you're going to cut. Okay, next up is to measure and make the cuts for our second niche. So measuring left, right, top, and bottom. And we'll head down and mark that out on our Durock. X marks the spot for the piece we're going to cut out and keep. Remember, that's the back of our niche. And the jigsaw makes quick work of cutting out the hole for our niche. And don't forget, that piece also becomes the back of the niche, so don't throw that away. Alright, we're going to go ahead and set this in place, and it looks like everything lines up real nice. So we're very happy with that, and we're going to go ahead and secure it with those rock-on screws. We have one more piece to cut. It's a relatively easy rectangular piece that goes on the top of our plumbing wall with one simple cut for the shower head plumbing, and that lines up just perfect. Couldn't be happier. And we're going to go ahead and secure that with our rock-on screws. And we have one final step with our rock-on insulation, and that's dressing out the second niche. And we're securing that piece we cut out of the larger piece to the back. And again, taking some measurements here for the bottom, top, and sides. So of course I'm dealing with the same width of about 5 5/8 all the way around. Verify that. And then I have the length of the top and bottom and the length of the right and left sides. So we'll just jot that down here on our Durock scratch pad. And we'll take a picture of it, head out and make those cuts. And as before, a real liberal, heavy bead of silicone caulk before the application of the top, bottom, and side pieces of Durock. Now, a lot of folks might think that this is overkill, that the waterproofing is more than enough to ensure a watertight integrity, but you know, it only takes a moment, and you really only have one chance to get things watertight. Wouldn't it be a shame if you did all this work, did a beautiful tile job, only to find out you got a little bit of leak, and your only options are to gob up a ton of caulk or take it all apart? And nobody wants to do that. The way I dress out my niches are installing the bottom piece and then the top and then the side pieces. It's kind of the same way you do the tile, and I kind of feel like the side pieces help to support that top piece, even though it's not going anywhere. So this is the finished niche with the second bead of caulk, sealing everything up. And that completes our Durock install, folks. On the next video, it's waterproofing. All the prep work you need to do, which includes caulking and applying a special tape that provides a little bit of structure to the waterproofing while it sets up. So we're going to apply that waterproofing to the wall as well as the floor. Why stop at the walls? Let's go ahead and waterproof your floors to ensure there are no leaks down the road that'll ruin your ceiling below. So we'll go ahead and complete the waterproofing job from start to finish, and of course including a few helpful tips from yours truly. Hey, thanks a lot for watching this video, folks. Sure do appreciate you watching, and if you have any questions, let me know. Best of luck on your project. See you next time on Doing Brew.